She kissed me goodbye, said she was working late. 10 minutes later, her taxi driver looked me dead in the eye and told me something that made my blood run cold. My wife wasn't at the office. She wasn't even close. And what he revealed next tore my entire marriage apart. So I don't really know how to start this. I'm 35 been married for 6 years, together for 9. No kids. Both of us work full-time jobs in the city. I take the train most days, but she, let's call her Mel, uses a taxi service almost every morning. She's not into driving, never really was. We live in a busy area, and honestly, it just made sense. I work in finance. She's in fashion. Our schedules don't always line up, but we've made it work. At least, I thought we were making it work. There's this cab driver, Omar. Guy's probably late 40s, Middle Eastern, soft-spoken, always polite. I first met him a couple of years ago when I had to ride with Mel one morning because my car was in the shop. That's when I found out she's been using the same driver almost daily. I thought that was kind of cool, like, personal service, someone she trusts. She said Omar was safe, discreet, reliable. No red flags. Anyway, about 3 weeks ago, I'm running late, missed my train. I call Mel to see if she's still home. Maybe I can grab a ride. No answer. So I call Omar directly. His number's in our shared contacts. He picks up and goes, "Hey, it's been a while. You riding with her today too?" "Too." I blinked. "No, just me," I said. He hesitated. "Oh, okay. I just dropped her off 10 minutes ago." Which was weird, because Mel told me she had a late start that morning. Said she'd be working from home until noon. I remember just sitting there with the phone still in my hand. I didn't say anything to him. Just gave him the address and waited in silence. The ride was quiet. I kept going over it in my head. Maybe she changed her plans. Maybe she forgot to tell me. Maybe I'm being weird. Omar didn't say anything until we got to my office. Then, as I was getting out, he asked in this careful voice, "Everything okay between you two?" I laughed awkwardly. "Why do you ask?" He didn't look at me when he said it. "I just see a lot. That's all." And then he drove off. At first, I brushed it off. I figured he was talking generally. Maybe they had a fight. Maybe she looked sad. Whatever. I didn't want to be that guy who reads too much into something so small. But that line, "You riding with her too?" It kept bouncing around in my head. That night, I asked her how her day went. She said, "Boring. Didn't leave the house till after lunch. Worked on samples." I nodded. Said nothing. But something inside me clicked. I didn't even know why yet. But from that moment, I started watching. And that's when things started to get real strange. After that ride with Omar, the one where he casually said, "You riding with her too?" Something shifted in me. I didn't say anything to Mel right away. I wasn't ready to come off paranoid or clingy. I mean, what was I supposed to say? "Hey honey, the cab driver made a weird comment that's now living rent-free in my head, and I think you're hiding something?" No. I needed to think. So I started paying attention. That night at dinner, I decided to test the waters. Nothing heavy, just to see how she'd react. I made spaghetti. She poured the wine. Everything looked normal. We sat on the couch, plates on our laps, TV playing something forgettable. Then I went for it. "Hey, ran into Omar the other day." She didn't even pause. "Omar? Oh, the driver?" "Yeah. Car's acting up again, so I took a ride. He asked about you." Her fork scraped the plate. "Ah, that's sweet. He's a nice guy?" I nodded. Said he hadn't seen you in a while. She chuckled. "Uffed. I see him almost every morning. He probably mixed us up with someone else." Then she went back to eating. Right there, my stomach flipped. It was small, but too smooth. Like she'd practiced it. I decided not to press. Not yet. If she was lying, the last thing I wanted was to make her cautious. So I just nodded, laughed a little, and dropped it. But inside, something was gnawing at me. So I started paying more attention. The next few days, I quietly adjusted my schedule. I pretended to oversleep one morning and said I'd work from home. She didn't seem bothered, but she left quickly, said she was running late. At 7:45 a.m., I waited a minute, then slipped on some sweats and walked down the block. Omar's car was there. I recognized the plates. Then she came out. And man, she did not look like someone heading to a stressful day at work. Black leather jacket, high heels, tight jeans, hair done to perfection, full face of makeup, bright lipstick. This wasn't fashion week crunch mode. This was hot date at a rooftop bar energy. I stayed behind a parked van and just watched. She got in. They drove off. The pit in my stomach dropped lower. Later that day, I texted her around 10 a.m. You want to grab lunch near your office? I'm around. She replied close to noon. Crazy day. Meetings nonstop. Maybe dinner? Cool. I didn't reply. That night, she came home at 7:30, kicked off her shoes, said she was exhausted, and headed straight for a shower. I went to the laundry basket. Yes, I know how that sounds. I felt like a creep in my own damn house. But I needed confirmation. I grabbed the top she'd worn. It smelled faintly like a men's cologne. Not mine. Not her usual floral scent either. Something heavy. Expensive. I didn't say a word. Next morning, I got up early. She was already dressed. Casual this time. Loose blouse, jeans, sneakers. I thought you had the late shift today? I asked, yawning. She froze for half a second. Barely noticeable. Oh yeah? They bumped a meeting earlier. I have to be in by 9. I nodded. Cool. Need me to drop you off? No, she said quickly. I already called Omar. I made myself some coffee and waited. At 8:15, I texted Omar directly. Hey man, can you swing by? Need a quick ride. He replied 2 minutes later. Just picked up Mel. I can come back in 10. Right. That night, I asked her again, casually, how work was going. Ugh, she groaned, pouring herself a glass of wine. Same crap. Marie's still on my ass about the Paris line. And the clients keep changing the specs. I'm going to lose my mind. I took a sip of my drink and smiled. You go in early today? She nodded. Yeah, around 10. Traffic was awful. She didn't even blink. Still with Omar? I asked. Of course, she said. I trust him. He's like my chauffeur at this point. I watched her. Not a single crack. Her voice, her face, everything was just normal. Too normal. And that's when I knew. She was lying to my face. Smoothly. Easily. Like she'd done it before. After that night, I couldn't unsee it anymore. Every little thing she did started to look suspicious. Maybe I was overanalyzing, maybe not. But once you start looking, you see. Her phone was the first thing. Mel used to leave it everywhere. The couch, the kitchen counter, even the bathroom sink. Now, it was glued to her hand. If she walked into the other room, the phone went with her. Notifications popped up, and she flipped it face down so fast it was like a reflex. Second thing, the excuses. She used to call me during breaks at work, just to chat. Now she said she was too busy. Whole days would go by without a single message, except maybe a quick running late or crazy day. I told myself it was stress. Fashion's brutal, deadlines are brutal. But then the weekends started feeling weird too. Saturday mornings, she'd suddenly remember errands, samples at the office, meeting a client, quick stop at the studio. Always vague, always just out of reach. I kept my mouth shut, but I was watching. The first real crack showed up one Thursday night. We were having dinner, Chinese takeout, nothing fancy. I asked how her day was. She said she'd been at the office until 7:30, big review meeting. She said it casually, like it was boring. Except earlier that day, I'd gotten another ride from Omar. I had to go to a client meeting across town, and I called him up. When I got in, he asked, "Not going with Mel today?" I played dumb. "She's at the office, I think." He made this little sound, like a laugh, but not. She told me she had the day off. Said she was meeting a friend. I froze in the back seat. I wanted to ask who. I wanted to push. But I just smiled at him in the rear view and said, "Oh yeah." He nodded. "Looked nice though. Like, really nice. Fancy dress." That image burned into my head all day. So when she sat across from me that night, hair up in a messy bun, sweatshirt on, talking about a long meeting at the office, I just nodded and ate my noodles. But inside, my chest was pounding. And then it got worse. While she was cleaning up, her phone buzzed on the counter. She'd left it there for just a second while she carried plates to the sink. I glanced down. Just a flash of a preview before it disappeared. Can't wait till next time. Last night was amazing. No name. Just a number. I swear my whole body went cold. My hand twitched toward the phone, but she was right there, humming to herself, rinsing dishes. I didn't touch it. Didn't say a word. I just stood there, pretending to scroll on my own phone, while my brain screamed at me. She came back, picked up her phone without even looking, and set it face down again. That was the first real slip. The first undeniable sign. And I knew. I wasn't just imagining things anymore. After that text preview, I couldn't sit still. Every nerve in my body was on high alert. I wanted to grab her phone, demand answers, throw the whole thing out in the open. But I didn't. Something in me said wait. Don't show your cards yet. So I waited. And I listened. The very next day, she slipped again. It was small, but clear if you were paying attention. She told me in the morning that she'd be working from home all day because her boss was out of town. Fine. No problem. I went into the office myself, pretending everything was normal. Around 11 a.m., I get a text from Omar. Need me today? I'm close by. I reply, nope, thanks. Mel's at home. He texts back almost immediately. Just dropped her off downtown. Thought maybe you'd be joining. My heart slammed in my chest. I didn't answer. Just sat at my desk staring at the screen. She'd said home all day. Omar said downtown. That evening, I asked, casual as I could manage. So, how's work from home life treating you? She didn't blink. Honestly, a little boring. Too quiet without people around. But I got a ton done. I just nodded. Yeah? Not bad. Inside, though, it was like a switch had flipped. She wasn't just lying once in a while. She was building whole fake days. Whole fake lives. Then came the weekend. Saturday morning, she told me she had to stop by the studio just for an hour. I offered to drive her. She waved me off. No, don't waste your morning. I'll take Omar. That's when I decided to push, just a little. I looked her in the eye and said, funny. Omar told me you were off yesterday. Her face changed for half a second, just long enough to see the gears turning. Then she laughed. He must have confused me with someone else. He's got dozens of clients. She said it so smoothly, I almost believed her. Almost. But later that day, she came home in the same clothes, hair a little messy, lipstick gone. She smelled faintly of cologne again, the same heavy scent I'd noticed before. She tossed her bag on the chair, flopped onto the couch, and said she was exhausted from going through samples. I nodded, but I didn't miss a thing. The lies were stacking up, one on top of the other. Little cracks were showing. Stories that didn't match. And Omar kept giving me pieces without even realizing it. Just enough to make the picture clearer. I still hadn't confronted her. I wasn't ready. But the weight of it was building, and sooner or later, something was going to snap. By this point, Omar had become something like an unwilling witness to my wife's life outside our marriage. He wasn't trying to expose her. He wasn't malicious. He was just a guy who liked to talk during rides. Small talk, casual observations, the kind of chatter most people ignore. But when your gut is already screaming at you that something's wrong, those offhand comments hit like bombs. It happened on a Tuesday morning. I'd missed my train and didn't feel like waiting for the next one, so I called Omar. He knew my number instantly, his tone always warm, like I was a favorite customer. 10 minutes later, I slid into the back seat of his Toyota, the smell of pine-scented air freshener filling my nose. Long time, my friend, Omar said, catching my eyes in the mirror. How's Mel? She hasn't been booking as early lately. I kept my voice neutral. Busy. Always busy. He chuckled, shaking his head. Yeah, she goes out a lot. More than most of my regulars. That sentence landed in my chest like a rock. Out. A lot. I wanted to ask, out where? But the words jammed in my throat. Instead, I forced a polite laugh. Fashion world never sleeps. Omar shrugged. Sometimes work, sometimes dinner, sometimes hotel lounges. I don't ask too many questions. But she's popular. Popular. That single word rattled in my brain the rest of the ride. What did he mean? Popular with who? Colleagues? Clients? Or was he trying to tell me something without saying it outright? My hands gripped my bag so tight, I could feel the edges of my laptop case digging into my palms. I didn't ask him to clarify. I couldn't. I just stared out the window, watching the city blur past, while my stomach twisted. That evening, Mel walked through the door like nothing was wrong. She wore sweatpants and a loose hoodie, hair in a sloppy bun, like she'd been at home all day. She tossed her shoes off, sighed dramatically, and dropped her bag on the chair. God, today was brutal, she said, heading straight for the fridge. Didn't leave the house once. My boss kept me chained to emails. I raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything, because I already knew she was lying. Omar had dropped her off downtown at 2:15, outside the Hilton. I knew because, for some reason, the ride receipt had pinged my email. My number was still on file as a backup contact. Her name was listed, clear as day. Pick up, our house. Drop off, Hilton Hotel. And there she was, telling me she'd been home all day. I didn't confront her. I just nodded, ordered Thai food, and sat through an episode of some mindless show while she curled up on the couch. She fell asleep with her head in my lap, looking peaceful, innocent, like the woman I married. And I sat there, wide awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how many layers of lies I'd already swallowed without knowing. The next morning, I decided to push Omar a little. Not too much, just enough to see if he'd give me more. When I slid into the back seat, I asked casually, "You've been driving Mel a lot lately, huh?" He laughed. "Oh yeah, she keeps me busy. Always looking sharp, always dressed up. You're a lucky man." I forced a smile, my jaw tight. "Yeah, lucky." He must have noticed something in my tone, because he added, almost absent-mindedly, "She tips better when she's with company, though. She's generous." I felt my chest tighten. Company. That word again. My mind flashed back to the receipt, to the Hilton, to her coming home smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't mine. Omar's comment wasn't detailed, but it didn't need to be. The pieces were already fitting together, whether I wanted them to or not. The rest of the ride was quiet. When we pulled up to my office, Omar looked back and smiled politely. "Tell her I said hi." I nodded and stepped out, but my hands were shaking as I shut the door. The world felt tilted. I wasn't just suspicious anymore. I was terrified I already knew the truth. After Omar casually dropped that bomb about her company, I couldn't ignore the cracks anymore. The version of life Mel was selling me, the tired, overworked fashion professional chained to deadlines, wasn't lining up with the version Omar kept sketching in fragments. And the scary part? He wasn't even trying to expose her. He was just talking, being polite, filling silence. But every offhand word tore another strip of wallpaper off the story she'd plastered in front of me. So I started paying more attention. Not following her around. Not hiring anyone. Not snooping through her phone. Just noticing. Watching. Keeping mental notes. Patterns. Mel used to be predictable. That was one of the things I liked about her. She thrived on routine. Up by 7:30, quick shower, coffee in her favorite mug, a kiss on my cheek before sliding into Omar's taxi at 8 sharp. She worked like clockwork and came home like clockwork, usually around 6 or 7, depending on deadlines. That rhythm was our life. But lately, her schedule had turned into static. Monday, she texted at 5:45, "Don't wait up, I'll be late." She came home after 10. No food containers, no laptop bag, no signs of the work she claimed kept her late. Just a faint smell of perfume and that same heavy cologne clinging to her scarf. Tuesday, she told me she was too exhausted to leave the house and had spent all day glued to her laptop. I nodded, played along. Later, Omar accidentally forwarded a ride receipt to my email. Pick up at our house, drop off at the Hilton downtown. 2:15 p.m. Wednesday. She wore a red dress I'd never seen before. It hugged her body like it was tailored just for her. I asked where it came from. She said, "Sample from the line, just testing the fit." Then she left for a client lunch and came home with whiskey on her breath. Mel doesn't drink whiskey. Ever. Thursday, she claimed she was sick. Stayed curled up in bed half the day, scrolling on her phone under the blanket, screen always tilted away from me. When I asked if she needed soup, she snapped, "Just leave me alone. I feel awful." No fever, no sniffles, nothing. Just a wall. It wasn't only the contradictions, it was the way she delivered them. The lies weren't messy or nervous. They were polished, like she'd practiced in the mirror before coming home. She knew when to sigh, when to look frustrated, when to roll her eyes about her boss. She could have won an award for how smooth it all sounded. And that smell? God, that smell. The cologne. It haunted me. Some nights it was faint on her blouse, like she'd brushed past someone. Other nights it was strong, woven into her hair, almost choking me when she leaned close. Always the same scent. Musky, expensive, masculine. Not mine. Not hers. Someone else's. One night, I tested the waters. We were brushing our teeth side by side, staring into the mirror. I kept my voice casual. "You seem different lately," I said, spitting and rinsing. She raised an eyebrow at me in the mirror. "Different how?" "Busier. More distracted." She grinned and flicked a few drops of water at me. "That's called stress, babe. Maybe if you tried working in fashion you'd get it." She laughed it off. I forced a chuckle, but inside, my stomach was twisting. Saturday morning, I decided to observe her routine from start to finish. I pretended to sleep in, but kept one eye open. She moved slower than usual, like she was preparing herself. Checked her reflection 3 times. Changed earrings twice. Reapplied lipstick even though she'd just put it on. She almost looked nervous, like a teenager before a date. Big meeting? I asked, leaning in the doorway, arms crossed. She froze for half a second, barely long enough for most people to notice. Then she smiled too quickly. Yeah, new supplier in town. Might be all day. I tilted my head. Want me to come with you? I've got nothing going on. Her smile faltered. No, it's boring stuff. You'd hate it. Go watch your football. She grabbed her bag, kissed me quickly on the cheek, and walked out. 10 minutes later, Omar's car pulled up. She got in, radiant smile on her face, chatting animatedly with him. I watched from the window as they drove off, disappearing down the street. This time, I didn't need to ask Omar where she was going. I didn't need a receipt, or a slip, or a text preview. My gut already knew. It wasn't work. It hadn't been work for a long time, and I was finally admitting it to myself. The moment I finally admitted to myself that her routine wasn't work-related, everything started clicking into place. And once that door opened in my head, I couldn't close it again. Every excuse, every late night, every missing detail, it all looked different now. The next mistake came on a Thursday. She texted me around 6:30, running late, heading home soon. Order something if you're hungry. Nothing unusual. I ordered takeout, watched a bit of TV, and waited. She walked in at 9:15, looking sharp. Black dress, hair freshly curled, makeup still neat. Not a trace of exhaustion on her. She kissed me quickly, said, "Traffic was insane. I'm starving." Later that night, while she showered, her phone lit up on the nightstand. Same unknown number as before. The preview just said, "Worth the risk. Can't wait again." The next morning, I casually asked, "So, how late were you at the office yesterday?" She didn't flinch. "Till almost 9. Brutal day." I nodded slowly. "Funny. Omar said traffic was light. He got me home quick." That made her pause. She looked at me for just a second too long. Then she laughed. "Maybe for you. He took me the long way, construction on my route." Her answer was too smooth, too fast, like she already had the alibi ready. And here's the kicker. I hadn't even taken a ride with Omar that night. I made it up, and she still spun an excuse, as if she knew she'd been somewhere she wasn't supposed to be. That was when it hit me. She wasn't just lying occasionally. She was living inside the lie. She had pre-built exits for every possible question, like a chess player thinking 3 moves ahead. But no matter how polished, she slipped. And I caught it. That night, while she scrolled on her phone under the blanket, smiling faintly at whatever she was reading, I stared at the ceiling. My chest was tight. My fists clenched. The woman lying next to me was a stranger. And I didn't know how much longer I could play along. The breaking point came on a Friday morning. I'd taken the day off work. Mel didn't know. I wanted to watch her routine without her realizing I was watching. She came downstairs dressed to kill. New blouse, sharp heels, hair curled perfectly. She sprayed perfume right before leaving, too much of it. Almost like she wanted to leave a trail behind. She kissed me quick, said, "Don't wait up, could be a late one," and grabbed her bag. The door closed, and for a moment the house was still. I just sat there at the table, staring at her untouched coffee mug, the lipstick stain glowing bright red against the ceramic. My chest felt like it was being crushed. 10 minutes later, I pulled out my phone and called Omar. "Hey, you free?" I asked. My voice sounded normal. Too normal. "Of course," he said. "Where to?" I gave him a random downtown address. Somewhere meaningless. When he pulled up, I climbed in the back seat. He looked surprised, eyebrows lifting in the mirror. "Oh, I thought you were going with Mel today too." My throat tightened. "What do you mean?" "She booked me already," he said. "Like 10 minutes ago. Said she had another meeting at the Hilton." There it was again. The Hilton. Always the Hilton. I kept my face neutral. "Oh, yeah, she mentioned something." Omar hesitated, eyes flicking to the mirror. "Listen, man, I don't want to get involved. I like both of you. You're good people." I felt my pulse hammering. "Go on." He lowered his voice like he was afraid someone else could hear. "She's with someone a lot. Same guy always. They sit in the back together. At first I thought it was work, client, colleague, something like that. But the way they act?" He shook his head. "It's not business." The air felt sucked out of the car. My ears started ringing. I stared at the back of his head. "What do you mean, the way they act?" He sighed, like he hated being the one to say it. "Holding hands sometimes. Whispering. laughing too close. You know, my stomach turned over like I'd swallowed glass. I shouldn't even be saying this, Omar added quickly. But every time she tells you she's working late, or she's tired, or whatever, man, I'm the one driving her. I see it. I hear it. And I thought maybe you should know. I sat frozen, gripping my knees so tight my fingers hurt. Finally, I forced out, "Thanks for telling me." The rest of the ride was dead silent. I couldn't hear the radio, couldn't hear the traffic, just the pounding of my own heartbeat, heavy and uneven, like it wanted out of my chest. When he dropped me off, Omar looked at me in the mirror one last time. "I'm sorry, man." I nodded, pushed the door open, and stepped onto the street. My legs felt weak, like they weren't part of me. Walking back into the house was surreal. The place felt different. Too quiet. Too empty. The morning sunlight spilled across the living room, hitting her scarf draped on the chair. The scarf that still carried that other man's cologne. I sat down on the couch, staring at nothing. Her mug was still on the counter, lipstick marking the rim. Her voice still echoed in my head. "Don't wait up, could be a late one." I sat there for what felt like hours before I finally whispered it. "She's breaking my trust." Saying it out loud made it real. The sound of my own voice cracked in the stillness, and my hands started shaking. There was no going back after that. After Omar's words, I couldn't keep pretending. The whole ride home, my mind replayed everything. Her lies, the cologne, the late nights, the texts. It all lined up too neatly. I didn't have a plan. I didn't rehearse what I'd say. But when Mel walked through the door that evening, smiling like nothing was wrong, something inside me snapped. She set her bag down, kicked off her heels, and said, "God, traffic was awful. I'm starving. What's for dinner?" I stared at her. How was the Hilton? The color drained from her face. For just a second, barely a flicker, she froze. Then she laughed. "What? What are you talking about?" I stood up slowly. "You've been going there. With him." She forced another laugh, higher this time, too sharp. "You're being paranoid. Seriously, where is this coming from?" "Omar told me," I said flatly. Her smile collapsed. Her eyes narrowed. "The taxi driver? You're going to believe some random cabbie over your wife." "Not just him," I said. "The receipts. The lies. The perfume. The text messages I've seen pop up on your phone. You've been caught, Mel." She crossed her arms, her whole posture shifting from fake shock to cold defense. "So what if I meet someone for drinks? That doesn't mean anything. God, you're so insecure." My chest burned. "Drinks? He's in the taxi with you. He's at the hotel with you. Omar sees it. I know it." She rolled her eyes. "You're pathetic. Do you hear yourself? You're grilling me based on what a driver says. Do you know how insane that sounds?" But her voice was cracking. Her hands were shaking. And in that moment, I didn't even need her confession. The way she stood there, cornered, lying through her teeth, it was all the proof I needed. I realized something else too. She wasn't sorry. Not even close. She was angry she'd been found out. And that was worse than the broken trust itself. After that confrontation, everything unraveled fast. The next morning, she barely spoke to me. Just moved around the kitchen in silence, slamming cabinet doors a little harder than usual, scrolling her phone with her jaw clenched. It wasn't guilt, it was fury. Fury that I knew. Fury that her neat little double life had been cracked open. By the weekend, we weren't even pretending. I slept on the couch. She disappeared for hours at a time, not even bothering with excuses anymore. At one point, she stood in the doorway and said, "If you don't like it here, you can leave." I laughed. "I'm not the one who doesn't like it here." She didn't answer. She just grabbed her bag and walked out. 2 days later, I went to Omar. Not for a ride, just to talk. I thanked him for telling me the truth, even if it hurt like hell. He looked at me with this tired sympathy and said, "Better to know than live blind." He was right. So I packed a bag, called a friend, moved out before she could spin it into another lie. I didn't yell. I didn't slam doors. I just left her standing in the kitchen with her phone in her hand, eyes wide like she couldn't believe I was actually walking away. The marriage was over, and deep down, we both knew it. Looking back, what weighs on me isn't only the loss of honesty, it's how naturally she could lie. Like the truth was just another outfit she could slip off when it didn't suit her anymore. And here's the advice I'd give anyone reading this. If your gut tells you something's off, listen. You don't need photos. You don't need detectives or hidden cameras. Sometimes all it takes is noticing the little cracks, the stories that don't line up, the smells that don't belong, the words of a stranger who sees more than you realize. I lost my wife, but I kept my self-respect. And in the end, that's worth more than staying blind in a marriage built on lies.